Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrael Hawkins. Well, a couple meetings we're going to talk about today in the news, Katan. One, the St. Petersburg Forum, where President Putin and President Xi Jinping of China got together as they strengthen their relations, talk about some of the energy deals that they have coming up. And we also have a Bilderberg Meeting, which is a meeting of some of the wealthiest and powerful people. So we'll have those, actually Larry's covering that story and have those details for us. And also, Los Angeles, California is facing a homeless crisis that is turning into a public health crisis as all those people not having clean water, and there's some outbreaks of disease, and we'll have those details. So these stories and more, but first, the streets of Chicago had seen less violence over the winter months, but now as temperatures start rising in America's third largest city, so too does the death toll. So far, the warmest weekend of 2019 has also been the deadliest, with over 50 people shot. Now, according to police, some of the conflicts are new, but some are old grudges frozen over the winter months, now thawed out.
Well, Chicago's chief of police, Eddie Johnson, reported on the weekend's sad turn of events, saying, "Unfortunately, over the past 72 hours in Chicago, we saw a despicable level of violence with 52 shot and 10 killed. Currently, more people are killed in Chicago each year than in New York and Los Angeles, the two largest cities in America combined."
Well, Chicago's new mayor, Lori Lightfoot, has vowed to hold police accountable for bringing the gun violence under control. Now, this will not be easy, as she herself has told reporters, saying, "I'm upset as a human being that we've had so many people shot. Now, this is not a law enforcement only problem, and they're not going to solve it entirely, but I want to make sure that they are doing everything they can to be far more proactive and recede the violence."
However, Police Chief Johnson blames the local justice system for failing to keep known gunmen behind bars. Johnson said, "We know who a lot of these people are, and how do we know that? Because we keep arresting them over and over again. And it's just a vicious cycle, leaving the police feeling like their efforts are in vain."
Well, this weekend, half of the shooting victims were from the west side. People in the area believe the unsafe conditions stem back to the 1968 riots, when much of that part of the city was burned.
Well, while Los Angeles is not suffering from the highest rate of gun violence in the nation, they are experiencing one of the highest homeless crisis. Well, in an effort to turn things around, LA has more than $1 billion set aside to make changes.
Well, the most recent numbers show a 12% increase in homelessness in Los Angeles County to almost 59,000 people. Now, in the city of Los Angeles alone, there has been a 16% increase, with the majority of those left homeless being under the age of 25 or over the age of 65. Now, with the new surge comes worries of new health concerns as well.
Now, that's almost half the population of Abilene right there that they have in Los Angeles alone that are actually homeless. That's a large number of people. Well, some officials are blaming the problem partly on a housing shortage, which has caused rent prices to be inflated, leaving many unable to pay and forcing them out into the streets. It is estimated that 75% of LA's homeless population lives in the elements and with no clean water or facilities to keep clean. Experts say the environment has become a breeding ground for diseases which can be spread.
Well, Skid Row, the most famous and one of the largest communities of homeless people in Los Angeles, stretches for nearly 50 blocks and accounts for 4,200 homeless people. Now, of course, the homeless are worried about getting sick, but they aren't the only ones. Now, one police station in the heart of Skid Row recently had an officer diagnosed with typhoid fever and at least 5 other officers were experiencing similar symptoms. Now, according to the CDC, typhoid fever is extremely rare in the United States. It can be spread through the contamination of it can be spread through contaminated food, water, or by close contact with someone who is infected.
Yeah, you don't hear much of typhoid here in the United States. You hear of it more in other countries that have those problems with, water's not being clean and they're living in unsanitary conditions. Well, another cause for concern would be the large buildup of trash that surround homeless areas and are very inviting to rats. The rats often carry fleas, which in 2018 caused an outbreak of typhus, and in 2017 there was a hepatitis A outbreak as well. All of this has local police even more worried about going to work.
Well, in a statement to Russia Today by the union representing the LA officers, they said, "At this point, we don't care who is at fault. We just want these toxic work sites cleaned and sanitized." Now, officers worry enough about being shot or injured policing the streets of Los Angeles. They shouldn't also have to worry about being infected with diseases that they can take home to their families simply by showing up to work.
Yeah,
it's understandable.
Kind of hard to defend yourself against something that you can't see. Well, 3 years ago, LA voters approved a $1.2 billion housing bond to help fix the homeless crisis. And officials say the money will go to building 5,000 new housing units over the next 10 years, but there has been little progress to this point.
Well, looking now at another health crisis, what once was a beautiful waterway in the heart of Kenya's capital now looks like a landfill. People used to catch fish and even draw water for washing clothes, but now only garbage, waste, and even worse are found in and around the river. Officials are blaming the environmental catastrophe on economic growth and industrialization with no regulations.
Veska Kangogo, a Nairobi County Environment Executive, said Nairobi County has one of the largest populations in Africa. We have 6 million people at night and 8 million people in Nairobi during the day. The pressure of urbanization and growth in the economy of Nairobi has led to activities that have continually led to pollution of our environment, of chemicals and industrial waste that have been dumped here.
Well, the Yangon River is only one of Kenya's waterways that is being choked by pollution. The pollution in turn is creating waterborne illnesses like the recent outbreak of cholera. It has also hurt the fishing industry as well as tourism to the country.
In hopes of making change, the Nairobi government is funding a project to clean up the Yangon River called the Regeneration Program. But the task is daunting, to say the least. The government claims they are cracking down on industries causing the chemical and other waste sources of pollution. And over the past month, the National Environment Agent or Management Authority has closed over 20 factories for dumping untreated waste into the Nairobi River.
Well, those cleaning the waterways say the waste byproducts from factories is not the only kind of pollution they are dealing with. One volunteer from the project says it's not just normal waste that we have to deal with. We discover animal carcasses and human remains. Now, recently, he said, we discovered 6 bodies that were dumped in this river.
Wow. Well, in total, officials for Nairobi County report 14 bodies have been found in the river, as well as human feces and medical waste from illegal clinics. Now, the Nairobi government estimates spending up to $3 million for the current regeneration project. The greater outcome they are hoping for through it is to increase awareness of the harmful effects polluted and what the waterways has on society. So those polluted waterways are greatly affecting society in a way that, like what you said at the very beginning there, people can't even drink that water, they can't do laundry, and it's affecting the fishing community, which people thrive on for their daily needs.
Right. What's amazing is when you see some of these pictures, you see the tremendous amount of trash that they're scooping out of there. And to think, as the one representative said, that used to be where somebody could go fishing and even get water to wash their clothes. It's amazing how far downhill it's gone.
Yeah, and it looks like they're barely making a dent in it, as the workers are there cleaning. But we know that, the effort starts with the first step. But it seems like the representative said that it's a daunting task.
Well, the 67th Bilderberg Meeting is taking place this year in Switzerland. Some of those in attendance are going to be White House Senior Advisor Jared Kushner and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Larry McGee has been covering these details. Larry, who else is going to be in attendance here at the Bilderberg Meeting, and what exactly is the goal that these people that come together, which are very well known to be some of the richest and powerful people in the world, what is the goal at this meeting?
It is very rare for the public to be aware of one of the secret assemblies where the representatives for the world's leading powers come together to plot. The Bilderberg Group is an exception, however. Not only are many people aware of it, the media even reports on it. The participants for the cabal's 67th session gathered in Switzerland recently with the usual array of power players spanning everything from finance to defense and technology. Advisor Kushner and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo were also on hand to lend their presence among the world's most influential. While there is reported to be a general assembly wherein all participants attend, insiders say the real business takes place inside meetings. The gathering of the infamous order takes place just weeks before the meeting of the G20. The assemblage is viewed by many analysts and commentators as a mecca of global policy. There are expectations held by some that the members of the Bilderberg Group might persuade the U.S. to abandon its counterproductive money war with Beijing. China's latest round of retaliatory tariffs came into effect this week in the form of an import tax of 25% on over 5,000 U.S. items. This follows American tariffs on over $200 billion worth of Chinese products imposed recently, along with the move of banning Chinese tech giant Huawei and pressuring U.S. allies to follow suit. And punching back, Beijing is said to be composing a roster of U.S. companies that it will no longer play with as well. One of the sectors hard hit by the back and forth between Beijing and Washington is America's agricultural sphere. To help offset the hardship they have had to endure, President Trump is promising subsidies. China is America's largest market for produce, and so Chinese analysts say that while the current administration might indeed be able to subsidize American farmers in the short run, in the long term, the government subsidizing U.S. growers to compensate for the loss of Asian markets will prove unsuccessful. International and independent specialist on China, Andrew Luing, added further that the current battle between Beijing and Washington is more than just economic. Luang says the real battle is for regional dominance in the Asia Pacific, and he believes that before it's over, many other nations will be caught up in the tussle. Some nations suspect as much and are making moves to try and prepare for it. Taiwan, the American ally that China considers a breakaway renegade, is in the process of closing a $2 billion arms deal with the U.S. The agreement is reported to be for 108 M1 Abrams tanks, and in a separate deal, the small nation is also seeking to acquire American F-16 fighter jets. China, of course, is in strong disagreement with the proposition. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Jing Shuan gave a statement saying that China firmly opposes the U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. This position, he said, has been consistent and clear. The spokesperson says that China urges the U.S. to fully understand the sensitivity and serious harm of its arms sales to Taiwan and to abide by the One China principle in the 3 joint U.S.-China communiques. Beijing would like for the U.S. to sever all military ties with the island that it has already reportedly sold $15 billion worth of military hardware to date. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen says she will not embrace the One China principle and stated that because of the Taiwan Relations Act, the U.S. has played a crucial role to help Taiwan reject coercion. The move is reported to further heighten tensions between China and the U.S. and drive an even bigger wedge between the two powers. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, you take into consideration not only the things that were discussed at the Bilderberg meeting, but also the tensions that are building between Taiwan and China, and then China and the United States. And of course, as we know, the China-Russia relations are growing stronger. Russia is at odds with the United States, as the United States is with Russia as well. So we see, tensions building in that area, as well as, the exercise in the Strait of Taiwan over there that just recently took place. We're not moving any closer to steps of peace, but instead steps for war, closer
And
to war.
even Catan, we're seeing that some of these smaller countries want to purchase what they can as far as arms, be it the tanks, the planes, anti-missile defense systems, to protect their own country, knowing that, look, we're facing a war. It's going to be coming sooner or later. So we,
Yeah, so they're allying themselves with bigger nations to make sure that, like you said, they have a defense system in place to protect their country. Well, the U.S. is setting records for natural gas production, and the U.S. Secretary for Fossil Energy, Stephen Winberg, said, "I am pleased that the Department of Energy is doing what it can to promote an efficient regulatory system that allows for molecules of freedom to be exported to the world." U.S. Secretary of Energy Rick Perry said 75 years after liberating Europe from the Nazi Germany occupation, the United States is again delivering a form of freedom to the European continent.
well, many are saying that the product being withdrawn from the shale is freedom, with a statement from the Department of Energy saying increasing export capacity is critical to spreading freedom gas throughout the world by giving America's allies a diverse and affordable source of clean energy.
Well, the three-day St. Petersburg Economic Forum recently ended, where President Xi Jinping met with Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss the relationship between China and Russia and the rest of the world. Well, currently, the relationship between China and Russia is at a historic high since the 1950s, and trade has reached a new high at $100 billion, while at the same time, both countries are at odds with the United States. President Putin's language was the strongest on the matter regarding the U.S., and this is what he had to say.
President Putin said, U.S. efforts to dominate the world markets is a recipe for conflicts and wars. Now, the role of the U.S. dollar has to be revisited. It used to be the world's reserve currency, but now it's being used as a tool issuing countries used to pressure the rest of the world. I think that is the error in financial and political authorities, because trust in the U.S. dollar is falling.
Yeah, people are losing hope and trust, like President Putin said, in the U.S. petrodollar. They see it has not as much value as it once did when it was at least backed by gold. Yeah. Well, President Xi said that competition is not the answer, and we need to work together to create sustainable and reliable sources of energy for everyone. He continued by saying that we're in for a long and difficult journey to energy security. Russia and China ought to act together and develop multilateral cooperation, play a constructive role in the system of global energy resource management, and make a bigger contribution to the global energy development.
Well, Russia's foreign minister spokeswoman Maria Zakharova spoke about the role of the U.S. foreign policy while attending the St. Petersburg Forum. Now, she said the U.S. government is turning into something they were once struggling with. They were supporting people of goodwill. They were supporting people of freedom. They were a country, a democracy based on freedom, and now it's like they're canceling their own ideology.
Jared Kushner met with Jordanian officials accompanied by the Middle East envoy. Now, the White House said that the trip was the first leg of a Middle Eastern region visit that is set to include Israel and Morocco in efforts to shore up support for the soon-to-be unveiled U.S. peace initiative. Well, the first phase of Donald Trump's deal of the century, specifically the economic part of it, will be presented in Bahrain, scheduled for the 25th and 26th of June.
Well, the Palestinian leadership in Ramallah officially announced that it will not attend the meeting in Bahrain. Mahmoud Abbas said the solution to the Palestinian situation must begin with a political solution and not an economic one, and the American peace plan and the economic conference will go to hell. Arab leaders have announced to hold two separate meetings of their own in the Saudi city of Mecca to appease the Palestinians.
Well, a group of senior Democratic senators introduced a draft resolution declaring U.S. support for the two-state solution. The issue with Israel annexation was brought up by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who tried to convince right-wing voters to vote for his ruling Likud party. The resolution aims to prohibit Israeli annexation. Well, Senator Feinstein said that a two-state solution is the only way for Israel to retain its identity as both a Jewish and a democratic state, and to recognize the Palestinian right to self-determination. And we, of course, we do know that the senators are calling for this. Many other people have called for this. The deal of the century and some of the things that Jared Kushner have presented in the last few months, because their secretive deal has, kind of made the public to believe that that's not the direction that they're wanting to go. Instead, they're wanting to offer economic incentives for the Palestinians. The Palestinians say, we're not interested in improving our current conditions. We want our own state. We want autonomy. We want to be our own nation. Don't just throw money at us. And of course, you can see Abbas fighting back at that, protesting this upcoming meeting that's going to be taking place in Bahrain, saying that, that plan's not going to work. While on the same plan, the other Arab states are trying to get them on board with this, because there is a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars are kind of being thrown in that Middle Eastern region to get everybody on the same page so that this deal can go through.
Right, but despite Mahmoud Abbas adamantly saying, that meeting he wants nothing to do with, and he doesn't want their economic benefits that they're offering, it may be that the other political leaders there will push him to accept it, because they are hurting so bad in their current situation. So, he is pretty opposed to it. But, when you start seeing those dollar signs and thinking about what they could do to help improve the situation of the Palestinian people, it may be something that they would consider the money that is being offered them. So it's really going to be interesting just to see. And of course, that meeting dealing with the financial end of the peace plan been set up for quite some time in Bahrain. So we'll see what comes out of that, and then really what the next step is going to be.
Right. Well, like we've mentioned before, Yisrael Hawkins, the House of Yahweh, has brought out detailed events concerning this time period, even down to the details of the signing of the 7-year peace agreement, which was signed back in September of 1993, 13th, I believe, of 1993, went into effect a month later in October, and how that was going to take place and build up to this time period that we're in now. And he actually brought out in those books, Mark of the Beast, Volume 1 and 2, Birth of the Nuclear Baby, and some of the other publications, that these things were going to go through in this time period, and they're going to have a plan that will involve both the Israelis and the Palestinians in order to bring about what seems like it would be peace, but we know that in the end it's going to lead to all-out nuclear war and destruction. And of course, that's what the nations are preparing for at this time, to get ready for nuclear war, not just conventional war. But if you would like to learn more about the prophecies written in your scriptures, your Holy Bible, and what they say for this time period known as the last days, contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
Well, to contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. If you'd like, you could visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. If you would like to email the House of Yahweh, you can do so by emailing info@Yahweh.com. Any international calls, you can call the number that's on your screen now. And if you have not yet checked out the 2 Bible Help programs that are on the market today, they're absolutely free. The Yisrael Says program and the Ask Yisrael program. You can do so by going to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next, Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.